Israel has earned its now well-known reputation as a startup nation with an advanced high-tech sector admired worldwide. With us today now, an impressive group of entrepreneurs from a range of different sectors, helping to break down what exactly has driven that success and innovation. And more importantly, maybe what lessons can actually be learned for Ukraine, other nations, and Jewish communities worldwide. Taking part, Synthesis founder and co-CEO Inbal Arieli, CEO of Redefine Meat, Eshchar Ben Shitrit, co-founder of Tel Aviv University Ventures, Nimrod Cohen, and co-founder and CEO of C-Tree, Israel Talpas. Tech is an issue near and dear to the heart of Jewish Confederation of Ukraine president and Kiev Jewish Forum founder Boris Lozhkin, a venture capitalist as well with many investments here in Israel. I'll let him take over the panel from here. Boris, welcome back.
Thank you, Nurit. Before we get to our panel, let's first hear a statement from Israel Talpas, co-founder and the CEO of C-Tree, a digitally disruptive agricultural company.
Hello, shalom everyone. My name is Israel Talpas. I'm the CEO and co-founder of C-Tree. Thank you for having me here today. It's a pleasure and it's an honor. Firstly, I'd like to share with you some of my background. 5 years ago, I retired from 33 years in the Israeli intelligence and defense forces. Started at the age of 18 in operations, then intelligence, and then managerial roles. And finally, I retired about 5 years ago. And when I retired, I hooked up to my family background, which is agriculture. We're from a kibbutz in Israel. My father's been dealing with agriculture all of his life. And I really wanted to bring experience and capabilities and technologies and people to this world. Me and my partners, we all felt that we could bring and do a lot of good to the world of agriculture. And that's why we set up C-Tree. C-Tree specializes in bringing data that we collect from drones and satellites and special vehicles to farmers all over the world. We use top cutting-edge artificial intelligence experts to analyze the data, and we provide farmers with insights and recommendations how to better perform in their farms and with every single tree that they have. And I think that this experience is a good example for why Israel, the state of Israel, is good in the world of startups and innovation. I think that we have three important components that make Israel what it is. One is the need. We don't have a lot of resources. We're small. We don't have water in Israel. We're a desert, and we have a lot of security problems. And so this forces us and forces the people to work together and innovate and be very creative in what we all do. Secondly, is we get a very important experience at a young age. At 18, all of the boys and girls in Israel go to a military service of 2 or 3 years. And in this service, we learn a lot. We learn values, teamwork, professionalism, integrity, discipline. All of these are very important. Plus, we also gain very valuable experience. We succeed and we fail and we try and we deal with very difficult challenges, and it gives us the sense that we can do anything and we should try. And lastly, I think Israel has a very, very strong ecosystem of companies and groups that help companies form new ventures and take on very, very big challenges. And with this ecosystem that really encourages the young people to get together and do things, I think that it helps us and gets us to where we are today as a worldwide power in startups and in all of the different fields of technology and more. So to sum up, I think that the world can learn a lot from Israel. I think that any place where you take good people, You train them, you give them the values, you let them succeed and also let them fail. And you help them throughout the way. You encourage this as you go forward. The examples of the state of Israel can be all over the world. And I think that mankind really needs this to take on the big challenges that we all face. I really believe that this can be done. Thank you all. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Mr. Talpas, for those remarks. I have now in studio with me the CEO of Redefined Meat, Ishar Ben Shetrit, and the co-founder of Tel Aviv University Ventures, Nimrod Cohen. And joining us via Zoom is Synthesis founder and co-CEO Inbal Arieli. I'll start with you, Mr. Shetrit, CEO of Redefined Meat. Can you briefly explain what is your product and the thought process behind this creation?
Thank you, Boris. I'm very happy to be here and excited to share our story with this amazing community. We are a meat company, but instead of relying on animals, we rely on technology and sustainable ingredients. We develop and manufacture today high-quality beef products that are available in restaurants in Israel and now also in Europe, that are made using plant-based ingredients. So everything is plant-based, everything is sustainable, healthy. And instead of growing them in a cow, we use a 3D printing technology that we developed here in Israel that allows to recreate the function of the muscle of a cow, which is what we eat. The main reason to start the company is because I love meat and I stopped eating meat, so I want to go back to eating meat. But actually, we understood around 4 years ago that the meat industry is one of the most challenging industry on this planet. It's huge. It's $1.5 trillion. And it's hurting the planet because we don't have enough food, we don't have enough water, and there's not a lot of space. And cows actually consume more water, more space, and more food than all humanity, and creating more emissions than all the transportation sector. So we said, if we can bring to consumers the meat that they love without using an animal, we can have a great business with a great impact. It's very challenging because meat has been around for millennia and is a result of evolution, and we need to rely on technology, which is not an easy task, but Israel has a tradition of innovating in areas that the problem is big and the challenges are big. But if you can have a solution, it's good for the environment and a good business as well.
Thank you. You know, agricultural sector is an important part of Ukrainian economy. Do you see a threat from such projects like yours for traditional, classical agriculture?
We see actually an opportunity because if you look today on the meat industry, it's not very efficient, and most people in the supply chain are there because this is the legacy, in many cases family businesses, but they're not able to innovate and not meet with the innovation in other spaces. And actually, if you look at the efficiency of using resources in our industry, there is a lot of opportunity to grow higher value crops, to have more sustainable, nutritious and valuable way of manufacturing food, and to allow more people access to nutrition while optimizing food for human being versus food for animal feed. And we are working actually with people that have traditional meat businesses. We learn from them and we join with them to this journey. And we believe this is inevitable because consumers want to reduce their amount of meat intake. And we are providing with a better solution that also works with farmers and work with ingredient producers. The big meat companies around the world do see it as a threat, but it will take 20 to 30 years until we become the world's largest meat company, and we will need to rely on agriculture for that as well.
So Ukraine has 20, 30 years for its agriculture sector at least.
But they should start innovating now, otherwise other areas will transition into ingredients for alternative meat versus commodities for animal meat.
Can you suggest for Ukrainian tech investors, what should they do? Where should they invest in food tech?
In Israel, it's very easy because when we started, we had nothing, just a vision, and it was very easy for investors to understand the vision is big. Now there needs to be a transition from just a vision to good food product. But if you taste a good food product and a founder tells you this is going to be big and you like the product, you should invest. In food, technology is important, vision is important, but a good food product is the most amazing thing because you put it in the mouth of investors and you put it in the mouth of consumers and you cannot lie. But food tech is one of the most important revolution of our generation, in my opinion. We need to feed 10 billion people quite soon, and the world cannot support that without innovation, without technology, and without creativity and risk-taking.
And if old industries see you as a threat, it's probably a good sign that what you're doing is the right track.
Especially when it's such a big industry.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Bal Ariely, the author of well-known, I think the best book about not only Israeli tech, but about Israel character, Israel mindset, and which called Chutzpah. This book was published 2 years ago. And why Israel is a hub of innovation and entrepreneurship. It's the slogan of this book. And Ms. Ariely, can you explain how chutzpah skills, which are extremely important and it's a part of Israelis, could be exported to another countries?
Yes, definitely. And I'm very happy first to be joining you, although via Zoom. So the Israeli mindset, the Israeli entrepreneurial mindset, as you defined it through the book Chutzpah, is actually a collection of elements, personality and skills that I personally believe are universal. I agree, the Israeli story, the Israeli journey shows us how in Israel they are well developed. But I have to say, and it's extremely important for me to say, I do believe they can be actually fostered and practiced anywhere around the globe. So what do they comprise of? They actually comprise of a long list of soft skills that the World Economic Forum has actually defined as the skills for the future, ranging from complex problem solving, critical analysis, teamwork and emotional intelligence, entrepreneurial skills and innovative skills, but also a proactive approach and taking initiatives. And the list is long. There are about 17 skills that the World Economic Forum has defined as the skills for the future. And those skills are the skills in demand everywhere in the world. Now in Israel, we've been privileged in a way because we, from a very young age, foster these skills. So when you look at a typical Israeli childhood, starting at very, very age, you will see these elements come to play on a day-to-day basis. It's not a strategy, it's not an educational methodology, it's just the way our society is built here in Israel and operates, and the setting that it actually enables to children from a very young age throughout their entire childhood. However, just like we said at the beginning, these are skills that can be practiced and can be strengthened. And I believe, just like muscles in our bodies, anyone can practice them. It's just a matter of awareness, intent, and a lot of hard work. I'm very happy to say that Chutzpah, this is the book in English, was actually acquired by a Ukrainian publisher in the name of Yakabuk. I hope I'm saying it correctly, and will be published in Ukraine by mid-2022. So we will have the chance to revisit this conversation with the book translated in Ukraine, and hopefully as many people as possible would be able to learn from the Israeli experience.
With pleasure. But can you explain how can entrepreneurs train these chutzpah skills, especially if they are not from Israel?
So there are many, many ways. And of course, it's like I said, it's a long list of capabilities and skills. It's not just one element. And it also depends on the stage, on the industry, on the goal of that specific individual, team, company, organization, or even country. So the first thing to understand is that there is no one specific formula that fits everyone. And that is a key element here. It's all about looking at the different elements and creating the optimal settings for them. And I can give you some examples. So for entrepreneurs and innovators, it would be about creating the dynamics where you can ask a lot of questions, where you actually do not follow best practices. Because if you follow best practices and if you follow existing knowledge and experience, your chances of disrupting, of creating something completely new, are very, very little. Another example is creating multidisciplinary teams, but not just as a cliche and slogan of diversity, but really putting effort and intent in creating teams that comprise of people who come from different backgrounds, even different professions, and have completely different views or angles of perspective on what they're trying to do. In Israel, we see that in the tech ecosystem, where many entrepreneurs transition from one industry to the other, and it's okay. So you could be a cyber entrepreneur or a cyber expert, and in 5 years start a healthcare company, and that would be just fine, assuming you're doing, of course, all the exploration and validation that is needed. That transition of talent from one industry to the other and the acceptance that we have here towards that transition is a key factor in the very rich diversity of innovation in Israel. Now, these are just two very concrete examples. There are many other examples, and I wish I could give you a closed list of 5 things to do in the morning to become a chutzpahdik entrepreneur. But it requires a little more depth than that.
Thank you. Israel often called as a startup nation, but I've heard from one my good friend from Israeli tech the new definition, scale-up nation. What do you think about this?
So I think it's completely the present. We used to refer to ourselves and to be called the startup nation. Israel has the highest density of startups in the world. And just like you said, is a very entrepreneurial, innovative ecosystem. We used to think in the past that this is where our strength lies. And this is what we're capable of doing, creating a lot of innovation, starting and bringing the companies up to a certain phase. It's no longer true. Israel has today a lot in terms of proportions of scaled companies that have chosen to remain in Israel with their headquarters in Israel and to grow. And maybe the best data point for that are 2 elements. One, Israel has the highest number of companies listed on NASDAQ after the US and China. And this is in absolute numbers. So the highest representation of a foreign country other than China is Israel on NASDAQ, which is, of course, the most reputable, the golden standard of public traded platforms. And the second data point is even more interesting. Israel of 2021 has over 70 unicorns. So over 70 companies that are valued at above $1 billion, private companies. Now, if you go back to 2019, there were only 18 such companies. And if you go a little further to 2013, there was only 1 Israeli company, which was a unicorn. So in less than a decade, from 1 unicorn to over 70 unicorns, it shows the maturity of the tech ecosystem in Israel. And it demonstrates the fact that, just like we said before, it's all about awareness to skills and capabilities and practicing them. Israelis are capable of creating large companies, scaled companies. They just need to be intentful to that and to have the right experience. Today in 2021, starting 2022, there was even today on the news an article about the fact that the Israeli company of Mobileye will most probably go public next year at a valuation of $50 billion. So if that's not Scale Up Nation, I don't know what is.
Great. Inbal, what is your next book about?
Oh, that's a great question. I have several ideas, but I'm currently focused on the chutzpah journey. It's being translated into a long list of languages. I'm extremely moved by each language and region I'm discovering through the book, and seeing how people from all over the world, young and more experienced entrepreneurs and other in tech and more traditional industries, how everyone is reacting to this universal approach to the entrepreneurial and creative chutzpah mindset. So for now, I'm enjoying this journey.
The natural next step would be going from startup to scale up, in case there is energy.
Thank you, Inbal. And now I would like to introduce Nimrod Cohen, the founder of Tel Aviv University Venture Fund. Have you already created your unicorn from the 17 Inbal already mentioned?
So actually I did, not from my previous role at Tau Ventures, but my previous role. So we have Yotpo, which is more than $1 billion company. We have Bring, which is more than $1 billion company. We have several more that hopefully in the next couple of weeks you're gonna hear of. But we'll see. I mean, unicorn is not something huge these days. I mean, just like another small news and a different website where I think this is one of the best things going on, which is not something that unique. It's just, something that's going on, and we see $10 billion companies and so on. So I think that's a great sign.
But why have you decided to launch the university established fund? Is it more profitable, more unicorns? What's the reason?
So actually, we are the first and only VC currently in Israel founded by a university. But it's a huge trend going on mainly in the US, where you see leading universities establish investments vehicles like MIT, Stanford, Berkeley, and so on. And I think it's a combination of several reasons. Part of it is the fact that the university really want to be a main player in the early stage investments it's part of the reputation of the university, the branding of the university. It's about doing good. It's about supporting new technologies, students, alumni, and so on. But it's not about philanthropic. It's a real business. It's about making the best returns that we can to our investors. And I think it's a huge opportunity because as we see in other places around the world, it just makes sense. On the one hand, there are so many great things going on around universities in terms of students, alumni, technologies, and so on. So if you are part of a university, it gives you, as an investor, it gives you a real advantage because you are just there. You see opportunities that others just can't see. This is one part. The other part, as we all know, money these days is pretty much a commodity. The fact that you have money, it's almost meaningless. I mean, you can't win deals just because you have money or because you offer better valuation. I mean, the good entrepreneurs, they're not looking for that. They're looking to partner with those that can offer them things that money can't buy. And once you're part of a university, you have the ability to offer the entrepreneurs much more than just money. It's about the great connections that the university has all over the industry and academy and so on. It's about connecting them to the relevant knowledge around the university. It's about workforce, students from the university doing internship with our startups as part of their studying. It's about office space. It's about the community, ecosystem, and it's a real endless list. So at the end of the day, there's an economic behind it. It's totally for profit. But it serves many great things, not just about making money. It serves so many great things for the university, for Israel and as a country, for our entrepreneurs, for our investors. So we're really happy about that.
Thank you. Now more funds prefer late stage investments than seed investments or angel investments. What's the reason and why you are in seed stage? Is it more profitable or there is some other reasons?
So that's a good question. I think there's tons of money going on to the later stages because you see what's going on. You see, I mean, let's say a couple of years ago when you raised your round as a startup, after 18 months or 24 months, you raised your next round and so on and so on. Now everything is like on steroids. Everything's going faster. You see more IPOs, you see faster IPOs. So I guess many of those investors and much of this money is going to the later stage because they want to see liquidation events quicker. We feel there's a huge gap in the very early stage. I mean, everyone say that they invest early stage, but if you see the statistic, you see not many VCs really invest early stage. If you are an entrepreneur looking for $1 or $2 or $3 million, it will be harder for you to raise $1 or $2 million than raise $50 million. I mean, as weird as it sounds. So we identify this gap around those areas, and we feel that there are not many players around those stages. So we want to continue and support. We feel, I mean, it's not just about business. Obviously, it's business, but not about that. We feel it's crucial to support Israeli entrepreneurs and technologies in the very early stage, because without the early stage money, there will not be unicorns later on. I mean, there can be tons of money on the growth stage, but if you don't have babies, you don't have lawyers, doctors, and others, right? So it's pretty much the same thing. So this is part of the reason why they decided to stay in a very early stage.
That's true. And what sectors are most interesting for you now?
So I have to be honest, as a very early stage investor, I think that the product is a little bit overrated. I invested in 60 companies. I think all of them is doing something different than what they described when we invested in. It's because, I mean, that's life, you know. You think that you're doing something, then you see the competition, you meet your customers. I mean, things are being changed. So for us, by far, the team is the most important part, because this is something that you really can't change and you don't want to change. The product can be changed tons of times. And so if we see a great team and the sector is interesting enough, so we're going to bet on them because we feel they're going to find a way to take part of this interesting market. So it's not just about the product, it's more about the team.
Okay. Ukrainian universities have very strong faculties of mathematics, physics, chemistry. Maybe it's time to go there and to launch, let's say, Kyiv Polytechnic, venture fund, etc.
I tell you a little secret. My dream was to create not our ventures, university ventures, because I really think it's a huge opportunity around there. But we started with Tau Ventures, but who knows? We'll see. Maybe next time we'll announce something much bigger.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for participation. Thank you for having us. And
so thank you for the opportunity. Hopefully next time maybe we'll visit Ukraine and we'll do it there.
With pleasure.
Thank you.
Wish you a great performance for your fund.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Inbal. Thank you for the participation in our forum, and I hope see you in Kyiv with a presentation of your book in Ukrainian.
Definitely, next year.
Thank you all so much for being here today and taking part in this. I hope our viewers came away with a deeper and more nuanced understanding of the Israeli high-tech success story, and that its lessons can be applied elsewhere to foster entrepreneurship and economic prosperity. Now I will turn the program back over to our host, Nurit.
Thanks.